Hey guys, Graham and Chris back here with you once again on Out of Left Field. So good to be back. Happy Easter to all of you. Hope all is well. Chris, how you doing, man? I know you are getting ready with the wife and the youngin' for Easter, man. You got any plans aside from me? I get to work, but what are you guys doing?
The usual eggs and hunts and whatever it is you do on Easter. No real plans. We're probably just going to stick around the house most of the day. Wife has to work. I have homework. My daughter's going to be disappointed this year, but it'll be some fun anyway.
There you go. Well, guys, a lot of stuff to get to, even though we are early on in the season. A reminder, we are brought to you by Grueling Truth Network. Check them out at Grueling Truth on Twitter and the Grueling Truth on Facebook. Also proud to be a part of Major League Baseball Mayhem, MLB Mayhem. Find them on Twitter at MLB Mayhem, as well on Facebook, MLB Mayhem. So let's put the ball in play. Man, we are, I guess, about 12, 14 games, depending on which team you're looking at into the season. And man, it is definitely early, granted. Let's go ahead and get this out of the way. It's early. But I think there are some teams who we're going to talk about in a minute that need to start looking at that panic button on the wall and are probably have their palm up against it and haven't yet given all the pressure to push it, but are close. And some things that have both you and I surprised as hell. And I'm talking about you, Minnesota Twins, at 7-4, second place in the AL Central. So, Chris, let's start off, man. Take us around the league. I know we both watch as much as we can, and we've seen some pretty good baseball so far, some that's kind of surprised us. Take us around. Let's kind of start looking at what's been going on, who's hurting, why things are as they are, and is there going to be, a change in the winds, so to speak, on the horizon?
Well, so let's do what we always do. We'll start in the East, and you got Baltimore on top in the East at 7-3. The Yankees right behind them. Surprisingly, in my opinion, the Yankees right behind them at 7-4. And then this is where it gets weird. In third place in the East is Tampa Bay. Now, I don't think you or I thought that a dozen games into the season we were going to see Tampa Bay anywhere near that number 3 slot. We probably both thought that was going to be Baltimore, Boston, Toronto. But Toronto,
not
Boston,
at all. I did not expect. But then again, they played really well against the Yankees first game. I mean, Archer has looked much better. He struggled a lot early on last year, had a hard time really kind of getting a grip on what was happening. He was struggling. He was a sub-500 pitcher last year. That seems to have all gone away. He's erased it. And Masahiro Tanaka has also pitched relatively well after that first start for the Yankees. He's now 1-1, still a high ERA, but then again, he got absolutely rocked that first game, so it's going to take a little bit of time for stuff to come down. But yeah, that one, I will say, to start off, I don't think they're going to keep it up.
No.
But one of the things that they do have an advantage for is they put down a new surface in Tropicana Field. You can see it. You could see it first game. It was a lot brighter in there, and a lot of guys are saying that it plays faster. First hit off of the turf is a lot more bounce to it, a lot more speed. It's giving some of the defenders a little bit more time to judge and get used to it. Obviously, 81 games in a stadium is going to be a lot better than a series here and a series there. So they will have the advantage when it comes to some defensive plays. It's not going to be enough to make a difference down the stretch long term, but it is something to at least keep an eye on, that we could see an error here, an error there. It could change the outcome of a game.
Right. And so far they're using it to their advantage. They've done pretty well at home. In fact, they're 5-2 at home, which is a great start for them, I think. But the really surprising one to most people, not to me, but to most people, is the fact that Toronto is starting off this season and is in fact already in a position to be not mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. Obviously, you can't do that in 11 games, but if you use prior performance,
history goes to show us that exactly.
Then they would be the first team ever to make the playoffs with a 1-9 start. So they're obviously one of our panic button teams. Excuse me. Now, as far as the National League goes, the Mets, who I thought who I think are gonna take that league, are in first place. They're at 7-4. They're playing well. They're having a few problems, but one of the things about the Mets this year that's really surprised me is they are hitting some towering home runs.
Yes.
Cespedes has gone 448 feet or 440 plus feet 2 or 3 times. Luke Duda.
I saw your Duda shot, and my gosh, I mean, that was into the shrubs, and I mean, dead. And Marlins Park is a big park. I'm pretty sure the roof was open, but I mean, that thing just left off the bat. It didn't seem like he had a 448-foot swing, off the bat, but that thing just kept traveling, and deposited itself deep into the shrubbery.
Yeah, 448 feet is a monster home run in any park, and to see a guy, and not to take anything away from Luke Duda's career, but see a utility guy like Luke Duda, who previously has been a guy who's not even an everyday player, get up to the plate and hit a towering shot like that at his age is pretty inspiring for a guy like me.
In the National League, I think for the most part is running pretty chalk aside from that for us. The
Right.
Braves are on the bottom. They're 3-6. Now, granted, it's nice. They had a beautiful ceremony at SunTrust Park. It was a sellout. I'm fairly sure. Hank Aaron, who by most accounts is still considered the home run leader, threw out the first pitch to Bobby Cox, the Hall of Famer. Obviously, I mean his career was made in Atlanta. And Maddox and Smoltz, and I believe Glavine and Smoltz. I think Maddox was there as well. And Ender Inciarte pretty much just took all the first. He had the first out, had the first hit, had the first home run, caught the final, the final out for the first win. So he pretty much just wrote his name in SunTrust Park history. Here's the funny one, and I want to give you a moment because I didn't tell you this, but I want to give this a moment to sink in. Okay. The original or the previous field, Turner Field, opened in April of 1997.
Mm-hmm.
The first game at Turner Field was also the first game of current Braves pitcher Bartolo Colon's career. Bartolo Colon, the big sexy, outlasted a freaking stadium. Let that sink in, people. Bartolo Colon has outlasted an entire team's stadium. His whole career has gone better than Turner Field's existence.
Which, and Bartolo Colon, I wouldn't be surprised to see Bartolo Colon pitching again next year. He looks strong. He's throwing hard. He's a little svelte this season. He lost a little bit of poundage. And
it goes to show you, I mean, really, if you're a guy who just keeps his nose clean and, takes what – no one remembers that he was a PED suspension. He was.
Right.
With the A's, I believe. So, they're 3-6. The Phillies are 4-7. Nothing impressive. They're okay. Clay Buchholz is, I believe, injured, has not pitched well at all. The Marlins are 5-5. I would say surprisingly, but, I mean, they still have some good pieces there. Pitching is going to be their hard thing. Adam Conley is going to be the ace. We discussed that in the offseason. He's young. It's a rough thing for him to take that mantle in the way he did it and as soon as he had to. But guys like D. Gordon, Christian Yelich, Stanton, they've got the bats for it. So 5-5, I think, is a logical spot for them right now.
And the thing is that the $320 million man is going to have to stay healthy this season. The only way the Marlins stay in contention at any level is if Giancarlo Stanton stays healthy. He cannot succumb to injury again this year. Washington Nationals at 6-5, kind of sticking in second place there. I expect that race to heat up a little bit more between the Nationals and the Mets. Bryce Harper's off to a decent start this year. He's hitting about .330 right now. Now, .330 through 11 games is not an indicator.
It's not an indicator, but compared to his start last year, it's nice. It should be a welcome sight for Nats fans to see a stronger, more consistent start from the guy who they're hoping to sign long-term as a franchise piece.
Exactly.
Now, we roll into the Central, and I was telling you this, and you had to laugh. We roll back into the American League. So the only two teams in the American League who were below 500 are the 2015 World Series champions Kansas City Royals at 4-6, and last year's American League champions, the Cleveland Indians. So yes, folks, the White Sox, the Twins, and the Tigers are all 500 or better. The Twinkies are a half game out of first place. They are 7-4, and the Tigers are 7-3. So now, granted, again, no indicator. Terry Francona is going to turn things around. I don't think they're on a hangover from last year. I think this is one of those things where you got a new big bat in the lineup, and like anything, it's going to take some. This is a team chemistry thing where okay, everyone kind of thinks it's mano-a-mano. Get in the box, face a pitch, you go. But guys are going to probably have to change their approach a little bit depending on who's hitting ahead and who's hitting behind Double E, and to try and get Encarnacion a good at bat to go ahead and make damage. I don't think that this is any indication or cause of concern for the Indians yet. We're going to see, but I'm still fairly sure that with the pitching that they have, getting Lonnie Chisenhall back, some of their starters are getting healthy again. Let's talk again maybe mid-June this time if the Indians are still below 500 or right above that mark. Then there might be a slight cause for concern. I still think the Tigers make sense, but the Twins that's kind of my jaw dropper for the season this early.
If you're at or below 500, 40 or 50 games in, it's time to get worried for the Indians. That sort of indicates something long term. 10, 11 games in, I'm not as worried. They are playing right now against Detroit. So we might see that 1 and 2 slot, or we might see that an improvement there, and we might see that 1 and 2 slot switch up.
Yeah, we're going to start seeing a lot of swings because we're going to start to get those interdivisional matchups. So we're going to start seeing a lot of 1-game, 2-game swings here coming off here. But the Royals, I hate to say it, they just don't look as sharp. I know Moustakas is coming back; he's trying to kind of get back in the groove. They don't look as good. I'm worried for what's going to happen. I don't know if I don't think they're going to have enough to make a deep run anyway. I think that these guys may end up being sellers at the deadline. Figure out who you have the best chance of re-signing from the group that you want. Probably Haas. I think Lorenzo Cain is up for I know Moustakas, Sal. Figure out who your best shots are to grab, who you want to keep, and try to sell off pieces. I think, I'm sorry, Kansas City Royals fans, I think that might be where your season is going. I could be wrong that they've played well, but that window, it came up, but it didn't really seem, there were no springs in the window, so it seems that once it got to the top, gravity just took it, and that thing just slammed. So, there might be a draft, but I wouldn't get too hung up on thinking you're going to be deep into the playoffs this year.
Right, yeah.
Quintana looking good for the White Sox. Still a trade piece, we'll see. But we go back National League side, and again, the two pieces under 500 are the Pirates and the Cardinals. Cardinals are 3-8.
And see, that's what I think none of us really expected from the Cardinals, right? We kind of all went into this season, headed into this season going, hey, the Cardinals are picking up. They're kicking butt in spring training. We think that this is going to be a great race in the Central, and, well, it just hasn't panned out that way. They just really aren't playing the kind of baseball that we expect them to play, especially with the pieces that they have. And we also are seeing baseball that we don't expect to see from Cincinnati with the pieces that they have. So is this indicative of it being early in the season? Absolutely. Is it indicative of possible long-term issues with St. Louis Cardinals? Well, at 3-8, maybe. because at 3-8, they need to be starting to worry about whether or not a 3-8 start gets them into the playoffs.
Well, yeah, I mean, and if we look at just team averages, the Cardinals are one of the worst. They're 29th in team average at 210. The Blue Jays are behind them at 200. That's it. I mean, a 294 team on base, a 331 team slugging. They've struck out as a team 97 times. They've only snagged 5 bags, and they've as a team they have 10 homers and 38 ribbies. I mean, just the bats are not hot right now.
Right.
And that's something that you know that Mike Matheny has to be concerned about. Now, as far as their pitching, I mean, their pitching is solid. It's a 4.55 ERA. But in 11 games they've gone 95 innings. I mean, if they're starter, it's just I don't know, man. I mean, they're averaging 265 against, so not great. Actually, they're one of the higher. So we're going to see what happens. I definitely think that there is a cause for concern in St. Louis. It's very early, but it does kind of get me to wonder. The Pirates are another team. We've talked about these guys a lot. They seem to be behind the 8 ball and never really get themselves free. And at a 4-6 start, granted they're 400 right now, we're going to see what happens. I have faith in Clint Hurdle. Clint Hurdle's a great manager, but at some point, I don't want to say his job is going to be on the chopping block because a guy like Mike Scioscia is still managing. But you have to look at, is Clint Hurdle the guy that you want to have there once you go into a mode of getting rid of guys like McCutchen and trying to probably rebuild some pieces, bring up some pieces through your minor league system? I just don't think the Pirates are going to have enough still long-term to come back. I don't think the Brewers are going to stay 6-6, and the Cubs are going to do better than 6-4. But, I mean, this is what it is. The Reds and the Twins are doing things we don't expect. But then again, the White Sox did that last year, and we know where that went. So again, exactly. If we're taking recent history bodes poorly for teams that struggled last year and have a hot start. So again, we're not forecasting that, but just something, it's way too early to get too high strung. We're just kind of giving you what we see. And right. Chris, as being a Giants fan, I think the panic button for you might be a little bit more concerning the most because you bring that fandom to the show as an umpire. I've kind of lost that ability to be a fan of a team. I'm more surprised that the Giants are sitting worst in the NL West. Now, granted, they've played one more game than the Padres, but they're 5-7, and that
they played one more game to the Padres. They've played one more game to the Padres, but they dropped a game to the Padres as well. The Padres were their first series win of the season. Not good. Okay? Not good. So you expect them to win against the Padres. I think you expect everyone in the West to win against the Padres. I don't know if 5-7 is panic button numbers. I know that if I'm Madison Bumgarner, I'm upset right now. He's gotten almost no runs in support, with the exception of opening day. He's gotten, if you take the 6 runs or 7 runs.
He had run support. He had run support on opening day. How did he get that?
Him. But if you take the 6 or 7 runs that they put up on opening day out of the equation, he's gotten 1 run in support in 2 excellent starts. So you're looking at a guy who's put together 21 really good innings so far, a complete game. He's got 24 strikeouts on the season in those 21 innings, and he's getting no run support from his team, which is hugely contrasted to Johnny Cueto, who has also put together 3 really great starts this season, but he's gotten tremendous amount of run support. I don't know if it's time to hit the panic button for the Giants. They do have 5 wins, but 3 of those wins come with Johnny Cueto at the helm. So at least one of the pitchers is performing. I would say Madison Bumgarner is performing as expected, Matt Moore needs to pick it up. Jeff Samardzija needs to go away. Matt Cain needs to go to the bullpen. And Ty Block needs to come in and pitch as a starting pitcher, in my opinion. That's their panic button move. San Diego is San Diego. I'll be surprised if they get one or two more wins this season.
So you are projecting the possibility that the Padres go
147 and 5.
42.
5 and 147. Yeah.
147. I'm sorry,
150. Yes. 157.
Whatever. Okay, guys.
I'm an English major.
There, stay in school. Just stay in school.
I'm an English major.
Stay in school. Yes.
So don't expect me to do mathematics.
I can count to 4 on my left hand, actually 3 on my left hand, and 2 on my right hand. Balls and strikes. That's all I got to know. But now granted, we look at records here. The Giants are 2-5 on the road, but that's because the team they've seen quite a bit so far, the Diamondbacks, are 6-1 at home. Now, right. If you look in the contrast there, they're 1-3 on the road. Right? I'm thoroughly impressed with the 7-4 mark that the Diamondbacks have set. Shelby Miller got absolutely smashed as you watched, and I don't know that Zach Greinke, I think his best opportunities were when he was in L.A. as a second guy. He doesn't seem comfortable in that primary role. We saw that in Milwaukee. We saw it in Kansas City. He seemed to be the most comfortable in his own skin when he wasn't the number one guy who was just, the spotlight was on him. He was behind Kershaw. He went out every fifth day, did his thing, swung the bat, and that was it.
And I'd like to point out, since you mentioned that they're 6-1 at home, that is 3 of 4 against the Giants in their opening series and a complete sweep of the Cleveland Indians in their next home series. They played extremely well. I went to 3 of those 6 games. All 3 games they played very well. I'm pretty impressed with a couple of guys on that team. I'd really like to see them do well this year. Not well enough to, knock the Giants out of contention for a postseason, but I'd really like to see them do well this year. I've gotten a little bit of, I don't know if you would call it soft spot, but I'm not hard-hearted against them anymore. Now that I'm going to games, watching them play, being in their park, you develop a little bit of a soft spot for anybody. Colorado, interestingly enough, I believe I said, was the team in the West that might play spoiler to someone. And they're playing very well. Blackman's playing well. They're getting a lot of really great pitching out of that, not only out of their starters, but out of their bullpen.
Yeah.
And I think Colorado's going to go on a tear. They're playing right now, as a matter of fact, and it is Jackie Robinson Day, April 15th. So everybody's wearing 42. Neither the Colorado Rockies nor the San Francisco Giants have names on the back of their jerseys today. So I don't know who's pitching right now. I just know that he's wearing Jackie Robinson's number. But they're up 5-0 over the Giants.
Let me throw this to you, though. With the Rockies, John Gray, one of the Rockies' star right-handed pitchers, was diagnosed with a stress fracture in the foot. He is currently on the 10-day DL. We don't know what's going to happen from there. And again, to me, that really is the hardest of all teams. They have the hardest, I think, ability to try and make that push because, yeah, you may have the best batting average, but you have the highest ERA because of that thin air. So, we know they're putting pieces together when they got Desmond. Trevor Story is back. He looks strong. I think, it shows why, I think we all thought he would have won. I personally think he would have won the NL Rookie of the Year had he not gotten hurt. Just from his start from, the first couple of months was just absolutely out of this world. But the Rockies are definitely in a good position. And Dan Plesac told us that the Diamondbacks could be a team. The 2 teams that you and I have discussed that might kind of be that they could be there, I didn't expect the D-backs. The Rockies I could see, and they're both playing some of the best baseball right now in the West. And Clayton Kershaw just still looks like himself.
on paper, though, you got to look at the D-backs on paper, because on paper they look like they should do well. They have a couple of really great hitters, especially you talk about guys like Paul Goldschmidt, who is a perennial power guy, who, by the way, didn't start his career out as a perennial power guy. He was a middling pickup late in the draft. He almost didn't make it out of AAA. It was coming here and working every single day. Hard work got him to where he is, and that was one of the best hitters in the game.
And it makes you wonder, as we go over to the West and the AL side, what would have happened if they had kept Gene Segura? And I know we're going to get to him with the Mariners here in just a second, but I mean, what you and I thought was going to happen is happening. Dallas Keuchel is pitching like a beast. The Stros are 7-4 right now. They've won 3 straight. They're 4-3 at home. They're 3-1 on the road. Thank God that hill that was in Minute Maid Park is now gone. So it's actually a normal center field. Surprisingly, the Angels are 6-5, but they've lost 3 straight. And then we get into the A's. But surprisingly, the 2 worst teams are the Rangers at 4-6 and the Mariners at 3-8. Now I know the Mariners are full of injuries, but
I just want to take a timeout real quick.
Okay.
What was the deal with the hill in center field in the first place? I don't understand, when the guys who designed that park were building it, which one of them said, you know what, look good out in center field? Big old mound of dirt. Cover it with grass. Whose idea was that?
Is that how you pictured the architects and designers of what was at one time Enron Field? That's how you picture this conversation.
Well, first
what
of
do you
all,
think about that in center field? We've had monuments out there in some parks, but why don't we just put a hill?
They're Texans, right? So the accent is at least suitable.
You can send all hate mail to @OOLeftField on Twitter and Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham on Facebook.
And the only way that I can possibly imagine that they thought it was a good idea to put a hill in center field that was in play, by the way, was if they were just absolute hillbillies who wanted to have a good time with center fielders. They're like, it would really mess with them? Let's put a big old hill out there they got to run up if they won't catch the ball. That's what they were doing.
Again, you can send all hate mail to @OOLeftField on Twitter, Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham on Facebook, care of Chris Furry. And if you really want to actually have some fun, check out Chris_OOLF on Twitter. I am Graham_OOLF on Twitter as well. So, again, nobody's surprised
at Houston's start. We expected Houston to do well. I expect Houston to take that league handily, or that division handily. The Angels, however, are surprising me a little bit.
Yeah, I think the Cameron Maben move was great for them. He was solid in Detroit, a good center fielder, had range, had a little bit of pop, has good speed. I was surprised Detroit moved on. I think it's a great thing for LA. I mean, you still want to have things behind Mike Trout. Trout hasn't been, hasn't come off as MVP caliber yet, but it's early. But I think it's nice to see pieces around them. They're pitching. We'll see what happens. They don't have anything. Jared Weaver was the mainstay for years. He's gone. So I don't see it. But this is a year that Mike Scioscia is probably fighting for his job. We have seen very lackluster, subpar performances. This is a big season for him in LA.
You see him put a piece or two. You see him put a piece or two around Mike Trout, and you see what it does. It picks him up. And when that piece isn't a 150-year-old first baseman, then it's even better. So, I mean, Pujols probably seemed like a good move. He was coming off of a really great season when they picked him up. So it probably seemed like a good move when they did it. But the fact of the matter is, Pujols is old. He was getting old, and signing into the contract that they signed him to was just outlandish. The A's are surprising me as well. I like the Oakland A's.
It almost makes me wonder if the GM that signed him was the same guy who designed the hill in center field.
Well, probably.
Great. Now I just get all the hate mail. This is awesome. Guys, as we keep on going. So
all you Angels fans, check out Graham_OOLF on Twitter.
So,
the Oakland A's are surprising me. I like the Oakland A's, and I like to see them do well. But the problem is, yes, they're 5-6. They're only a game under 500, and they're playing pretty well. Problem is, the games that they're losing are the games where you see all of the holes and see them exploited very badly. They're losing games by 8 and 9 runs.
Right. Now, the team that you picked for your wild card is the Mariners, and as we kind of start to transition into where we think the panic button needs to get pressed, and maybe which teams need to just open up the the box and get ready. Let's see the little red button. We don't have to press the little red button just yet. But the Mariners are, they are full right now of injuries. Drew Smyly obviously came out of the WBC with an injury. You told me that Gene Segura is. They are riddled with just guy on the DL after guy on the DL after guy on the DL. So while yes, this 3-8 start is not what you want to see, it's hard to kind of take this in a vacuum and go, well, they started 3-8, they're playing poorly, they don't have a chance, when a lot of the pieces that should be on that team just aren't there right now.
Well, so let's talk about these panic button teams, right? And speaking of the Mariners and whether or not it's time to hit the panic button, it very well could be. Because like you said, they have guys on the DL. They have 6 guys on the DL right now. They have their everyday shortstop in Gene Segura, who's the NL hits leader last year, who they picked up from the Diamondbacks, and who they, I think, expected to be their kind of offensive anchor.
Right, yeah.
But beyond that, Sean O'Malley, who's their backup shortstop, he goes on the DL until May for an abdomen strain. You got Steve Cishek, who's a right-handed pitcher, a relief pitcher. He's gone till late April with a hip. You got Drew Smyly, late June, possibly late June, depends on how his rehab stuff goes, in Tacoma. But he's on the 60-day DL. Robert Whalen, who's a starter, out with a calf, out indefinitely with a calf. And Shea Simmons, who's a reliever, is out indefinitely with an arm injury. So these are not small pieces of their starting lineup. These are guys who are going to hurt them by being hurt. So do they panic and trade for guys? Do they panic and call guys up from AAA Tacoma? What do they do?
You got to try. I think at this point you try and ride it out.
Right.
You got to hope you're going to get guys back. It's early. They should be, and I think you and I both agreed, probably one of the weakest divisions. Obviously, when we think the AL, but they're in one of overall, I think, the weakest divisions. Just because, if we don't expect the Angels to do what they're doing, but they're going to see the A's and the Angels and the Rangers a decent chunk. And right now, if the Rangers keep on having these pitching woes, that's how it's going to stay. So I wouldn't do it yet. If they're still sub 500 and they're out of 500 by 5 or 10 games, come another month and a half, then yeah, I would start looking at maybe it's time to press the button. And if they do, there's a lot of pieces that they have the opportunity to move. I saw Dan Vogelbach in the box yesterday. He's the first baseman that came over from Chicago in the Mike Montgomery trade. Young kid, big kid, looks good. I think he's going to be a solid player for them. He's a good piece, and it's one of those things right now where, let's be honest. The sign. They spent a ton of money. Robbie Cano, Nelson Cruz. We saw them just drop. Brinks truck after Brinks truck after Brinks truck into guys' back doors, and it just hadn't paid off. And
Right.
Unfortunately, we saw this same problem happen with the Atlanta Braves back in the mid-2000s. As Chip Carey told us last year when we talked to him, which again, guys, if you want to find any of our interviews, other shows, you can at OO Left Field on Twitter. Best place also Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham on Facebook. We talked to Chip Carey, the voice of the Atlanta Braves, and that was his big thing is previous management, instead of going through the way Theo Epstein has done in 2 different locations, and he has rings to show that this plan works, of building up your farm system, getting the pieces and growing from the inside, the Braves tried to go from the outside in, and it absolutely crumbled that franchise. That's why they are still one of the worst teams in baseball and probably are going to be that for this season. So, I think that the Mariners they're in a have to win now, and the problem is the Astros have made a ton of good moves after bringing up guys like Altuve and Correa, and they had good pieces internally. The Mariners don't have that. So, no, you don't need to press a panic button yet, but if you don't pull it off this season, unfortunately, you aren't even going to have to consider the panic button for several seasons to come, I fear, for you Mariners fans. I'm sorry to say it, but it's true.
And I really like to see Kyle Seager pick it up, start playing a little bit more like his brother Corey.
Wonder how that Thanksgiving Christmas dinner goes.
Yeah,
hey,
and
Kyle, how's it going? Sorry, I have
you
sit next to me with my Rookie of the Year plaques right here. So sorry I couldn't have you sitting next to me, brother.
With two shortstops down, you would think maybe they'd take a look at Justin Seager, right? Because Justin Seager's been lighting up the minor leagues. That's just a good group of baseball players in the Seager brothers, right? But he's been lighting up the minor leagues, and he plays that position, or he can play that position. Maybe think about giving him a call up. Let him get his, dip his feet in Major League Baseball while Gene Segura sort of rehabs and he's coming back in 10 days. Hopefully it's just a hammy. But, let this kid come up and take a few hacks at the Major League level. Send him back down. Give him that experience. Maybe that sort of lights a fire under his brother's butt.
Right. Okay. So
having him play next to him.
So then let's fly. Let's fly east to the next time zone. Let's look at the 2 teams below 500 in the Central, the Indians and the Royals. To me, even at 4 and 6, I don't want to say. Here's my issue. I don't think it's time for a panic button in Cleveland at all. Right. I think they're just getting some chemistry things worked out. They'll be fine. Here's my and I have friends who are Royals fans. Here's the thing. The reason I'm saying no to your panic button in Kansas City is you're not contenders. Reason. You don't have a reason. Exactly. And I'm sorry, but it's just not there. It's not in the cards. You had your one win and it was great. I hope you have great pieces there. The question is now, unfortunately, you lost your big arms. Some of the tragedy, some just didn't work. Your bullpen has moved on. Wade Davis, guys like that, are in other teams or just they got unhealthy. So I don't think a panic button is going to be in KC because it isn't needed. Here's the one that worries me: Toronto, press it. You're 1-9. Or you're 2-9 now, but you need to press it. You got to figure out what's going on.
Toronto should be at DEFCON 1 right now. Toronto should not just press the panic button. They should be at DEFCON 1. They are absolutely in the worst position that they could possibly be and still hope for any sort of postseason appearance. In fact, they would be the first team.
The best division or the toughest division in the game.
Right.
The one that gets
and
me.
And they would be the first team in history to do it.
Yeah, and this is the one that I really want to know, because when you and I talked pre-show, we kind of had, we had a couple teams we knew, but we didn't really, and this is kind of just off the cuff. It's how we do the show, guys. We love doing the show. Sometimes things happen, and we're kind of just going off teams that are 500 or below. But I want to ask you, now granted, David Price should be coming back. They're getting things figured out for his rehab starts, should be back up with the big club soon. But the Red Sox at 5-5, sitting in 4th place in the East, I don't think it's panic button time yet, but I think the hairs on the back of your neck have to stand up if you are a Red Sox, in the front office or a fan. But I'm curious to get your take on that.
Yeah, I don't think it's panic button time yet, but I think you need to take a long, hard look at your team, and you need to ask yourself, Is David Price the difference between above 500 and below 500? In my opinion, no, he's not. The guy who's the difference between above 500 and below 500 is Rick Porcello, and he's playing his games, and he's playing them well.
You don't think Chris Sale?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Because look at how much of a difference Chris Sale made in what the White Sox were able to do last year after they took that nosedive. None.
You got him
Chris
New
Sale's
jerseys.
great. Okay, he did get him new jerseys, but he wasn't a difference maker, right? And I'm not saying that he can't be a difference maker, but what I'm saying is that as we move deeper into the season, Chris Sale's not the guy who's the difference. The reigning AL Cy Young winner is the guy who's the difference, and that guy is playing. David Price is not that guy. So as we look at David Price coming back, expect him to add a win every 10 days, right? 1 and 2. Expect him to win one, lose one in his start.
So you're thinking that David Price is going to be a 500 pitcher this year?
Not this year, but as he comes back.
Okay.
Until he can get really back into the swing of things, he's not going to get to that 600 and 700 level because he's going to still be trying to, despite his rehab starts, he's still going to be trying to get into the swing of major league hitters, which he's not going to see in rehab starts.
So then let me ask you this, since we're kind of running tight on this segment, we're going to run down to the National League. So do you think right now it's more a matter with David Price coming back of the Red Sox putting together more wins, or the Red Sox kind of just playing level-headed even ball and letting the Yankees and the Rays kind of work their way down in the standings, and the Red Sox moving up behind the O's?
The Red Sox need to find a bat to replace David Ortiz. That's what the Red Sox need to do. The offense needs to put together more wins. The pitching is going to be the pitching, with or without David Price. You have Porcello, you have Sale. So the offense is what really needs to get started. And like I said before the season started, they didn't get a bat to replace Poppy. And that's a problem.
Okay. So we flip leagues again. Same thing. Marlins, Phillies, Braves. Phillies and Braves again. No chance of contending. As far as the Marlins go, for me, they're playing with house money. For lack of a better sports term, but you're not expected to do anything after Jose Fernandez dies. I don't mean to be blunt, but after everything that happened and he's gone, no one expected you to contend. So the fact that you are 5-5 and you're actually putting together some decent baseball with some decent bats and some good hits. I mean, if they can play spoiler or if they can find a wild card, great. But I mean, I think it's they're playing house money. The one that worries me, the Brewers 6-6 again. No expectations here. We didn't come in here with any expectations. There's already being reported of trade talks between the Dodgers and the Brewers starting really early in the season for Ryan Braun. There was consideration of it last year, so we'll see where that goes. Right now at 6-6. If they begin to go further down, that may happen. But the Pirates and the Cardinals are the teams that worry me.
The Cardinals should be looking at that panic button right now. They should be giving it a long, hard look. It's about
and
time.
The Pirates.
Well, but I don't know that we expected the Pirates to really contend.
That's kind of
Starling
Marte,
Starling Marte
it sounds
is a
bad,
great
but
player. He's doing really well right now, but again, Andrew McCutchen is playing way, way below even what we saw in the WBC. So Starling Marte can't carry that team in the same way that Andrew McCutchen couldn't when he was playing, when he was a great player. He can elevate them, but he can't carry them to a win, right? He can't carry them to a championship. So I don't see them as contenders.
Where things go. Yeah, and that always kind of seems to be where things go, right?
Yeah, right. So the Cardinals, though, the Cardinals will be taking a long, hard look at that panic button. It's about time. A couple more losses here in the next few days, and they need to figure some new things out.
So obviously the Padres, same thing. And here's the final question, and I'm going to ask you to be as level-headed and kind of as emotionally removed as possible. But 5-7. I mean, should the Giants be worried? They signed a closer, but they didn't turn a lot of things over in that bullpen. And that bullpen has been an Achilles heel horrendously since the season began, and that needs to get fixed, in my opinion. If we get some more blown holds or blown saves, it's going to be deja vu all over again, to quote Yogi Berra.
Right. So the Giants aren't in panic mode yet. This is not their worst start by far of postseason seasons. A couple of seasons ago, when they last won the World Series, they were swept in their opening 4-game series by the Diamondbacks. So is it time to really panic? No. However, is it time to take a cold, hard look at what's going on in their bullpen? Yes, because their bullpen has given up a lot of runs. They've had some real struggles. They're sort of settling in now, but like I said, Matt Cain needs to go to the bullpen. Matt Cain needs to retire, but Matt Cain needs to go to the bullpen. George Contos needs to pick it up. He's running at a 7.36 ERA. This is a guy who used to be a sure thing coming in for an inning or two, get 5-6 outs, had a 1-point-something ERA last season doing that as a reliever. He needs to pick it up. Ty Block needs to start. Jeff Samardzija, I think they need to trade Jeff Samardzija, although he's really not worth much, so I don't know what they'll get for him. But they need to figure out something to do with Jeff Samardzija. Matt Moore gave up 5 runs in his start today. He is struggling. He needs to pick it up. But then there's the two beacons, Cueto and Bumgarner. Bumgarner's just not getting run support, and Cueto is playing Cueto baseball. He's 3-0, and he's killing it. He's absolutely killing it. So, yes, they need to worry. No, they don't need to panic.
All right,
Buster Posey being injured is a big deal, though, and it's hurting him.
And he was concussed, and we'll get into.
And Michael Morse coming back from his injury is going to be good too.
Yeah, we'll get into the concussion side of things here in just a few minutes. So long, emotional, heartfelt fan breakdown of yes, they need to press the panic button, or no, they didn't. Is no, don't panic right now. But you got your 5 minutes of Giants talk in. So we have met the quota for the show. We're good. All right. Again, guys, this is Out of Left Field with Graham and Chris. You can find us at OO Left Field on Twitter, Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham on Facebook. Also, check out the Out of Left Field baseball community. It's a great place to come together, talk baseball, have a little bit of fun. Also, proud to be part of the Grueling Truth, at Grueling Truth on Twitter, the Grueling Truth on Facebook, where legends speak, and also MLB Mayhem, at MLB Mayhem on Twitter and MLB Mayhem on Facebook.
So I just want to warn everyone before I say what I'm about to say, that this is very cringy. But Friday night, Noah-Syndergaard tore his fingernail back in a start and had to exit in the 6th inning. But he doesn't know what to do now, right? What did he say, Graham? It's not blisters, it's fingernails, right?
Well, he said he's had this problem in the minors before. Not really understand why it's happening now, but that if he keeps his fingernails too short, causes blisters. But if they get too long, then basically they split. So Thor looks at this as a reason to bring the hammer into a local mani-pedi shop and go ahead and just get the nails worked on.
Right. He wasn't joking when he said this gives me an excuse to get a mani-pedi. He is going to make his next start with fake nails, according to Anthony DiComo of MLB.com. So that will be an interesting start.
Now I don't know if they're playing home or away. So do you go blue or orange? We going acrylic or gel? Like, what color are we going with on these nails? I mean, Chris, you're kind of the fashion expert. What are you going for?
I think you want to go a subdued color. You don't want to give away too much finger position. So you don't want to give away too much in relation to where your fingers are positioned on the ball. So I think maybe you go a little bit subdued, maybe a nice pastel orange. something like that, or even like
Wow,
a
the
flat
words
blue.
pastel orange, I never thought I would hear on this show. So this has been Chris Furry's Nail Hour. Good Lord.
Speaking of the Mets, though, and trying to get away from injuries, I feel like our show in the last couple of weeks has really become an injury report because there have been so many injuries. People are just getting hurt, and it's that time of year. You know, at the beginning of the year, people get hurt because they're getting into baseball mode. In the middle of the year, they get hurt because they're sort of stretching it out before the break. And at the end of the year, they get hurt because it's been a long season. So we're in one of those three sort of slots where people get injured, and we talk about it a lot. But let's talk about something else. Let's talk about your neck of the woods, Graham, and how badly that's going.
No, everything's fine in Florida, Chris.
No, I'm talking about umpiring. And specifically as it relates to replay this year. So as we all know, they've made some changes to replay. Replay now has 2 minutes. Although I did get a chance to finally read the verbiage of that rule change, and it basically says they have 2 minutes to find evidence that would overturn the play or evidence that would keep the call the same on the field, quote, unless they need more. So it's 2 minutes, but it's not 2 minutes. But anyway, there's a rule change, but they've made some bad calls this season. One of which was just the other day with Giannis Cespedes, who, yes, should he have slid? Probably. But he comes into the plate, catcher turns around, completely whiffs on the tag, and everybody in the stadium's looking at the replay. The announcers are looking at it, and everybody's like, yeah, no, he missed. And the umpire comes back from the booth and says, no, he's out. So what's that about?
All right, I didn't see this replay. There have been some that I have. Now, granted, I did get a quick look at the play itself, and I couldn't tell from the angle. I thought the tip of the glove got the back of his thigh. I didn't get every angle. I was looking up the line from third base. It looked to me like the catcher kind of caught it. Probably, I mean that's an odd play, and unfortunately for Angel Hernandez, he was at a bad angle, and that's not really a fault of his own at that point. You're in the area where you're expecting things to come. The throw went offline, and he got blocked. I mean, unfortunately, it is what it is. You don't have X-ray vision, and he called him safe. I mean, you can't see through a runner. You call what you can see. But there have been some that I have been very surprised at. There was one the other day in a Cubs game. I mean, it looked clearly like the runner had beat the ball to the bag. The biggest one to me was opening day. You and I talked about this before you left. Was it was a throw over to first, and the ball basically kind of got caught up in the heel of the glove and was rolling through the glove as the runner reached the base. And to me, if the ball's still rolling, it hasn't been secured. And they called him out. So again, I'm not in these guys' ears. I can't tell you what's being said. One of the issues as well we have to remember as far as it comes to the 2 minute thing is it's one crew. So 4 guys working replay. If there are multiple replays happening, it is going to take more than 2 minutes because you're kind of basically on hold. I do wonder what kind of hold music MLB umpires get. I haven't really, maybe it's soothing, maybe it's complimentary. Maybe, you're doing a great job, and it's things kind of build them up since they're hearing all kinds of nice things from the stands. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, we have seen a lot of quizzical looks at replays this year. And as a guy who more often than not is going to always give the umpire the benefit of the doubt, there have been quite a few that have made me scratch my head and just wondering what in the hell they actually are seeing in that replay booth. We don't get a lot of explanations, but it sure as hell doesn't make sense.
So I'm watching this replay right now from every angle on MLB.com. Slow motion. I'm actually watching the broadcast, and there's just not enough. I mean, there's one angle where it really looks like he might have slid the glove along the backside of his pants, but it's tough, man. And especially, especially from the umpire's point of view on the field, that's just not something he would have saw. Because if he did get him, it was the barest of – it was a lace on a pocket, basically. So
right. And Jerry Davis has told us that, that has – that kind of play has been called before, where it is just a lace and there you go. And
that's all it takes.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
You can't expect a guy on the field in a bang-bang situation like that at full speed to see a lace brush against a sock. So that's the benefit of replay. If they got it wrong, they got it wrong. But another thing that's really been going on with umpires, not as much this year, but a lot last
Hopefully
year.
It stays that way, yeah.
Right.
We had a lot last year.
There were a lot of umpire injuries. And we had one last night, and Dale Scott.
One of the worst I've seen in a while.
He just got unfortunately got tagged right in the same place he got tagged a year ago, right in the chin, right on the button, and he had to be carried off on a stretcher. He had to have his neck stabilized. Yeah. I'm not an umpire. I've been behind the plate as a catcher a few times in my life, but I've never taken a shot like that, so I'll leave that up to your expertise.
I took one last week. I took one basically right in the right cheek, caused my mask to kind of spin a little bit, and my mask is snug. I do wear a Force 3, which we've talked about, and we're actually excited to get into a bit more here in just a second. For those of you who are umpires or have thought about it, Force 3 on the market right now, and we are not sponsored by them. This is from my experience and other guys I know, is the best stuff on the market right now. You'll get mixed reactions on some things like their vest, but as far as when it comes to their mask, I took one that was basically right on the cheekbone. Should have probably knocked me on my butt, and that was fine. I felt a little bit of tinkling, which is normal when you're having some kind of force going into your body, but I walked away. We kept going. So a guy that we actually has been on the Grueling Truth before. So here's a kind of a backstory of the show real quick before we introduce our next guest. The whole reason that Out of Left Field is being presented to you guys, and again, we are proud to be a part of the Grueling Truth Network, where legends speak at Grueling Truth on Twitter, the Grueling Truth on Facebook, and also being now brought to you by MLB Mayhem. Find them on Facebook, at MLB Mayhem on Twitter, and just search MLB Mayhem. Some great articles all the time coming from them on Facebook. So Mike Goodpasser, the CEO, creator of or the founder of the Grueling Truth, did an interview with Jason Klein and Tyler Flowers. Tyler Flowers being the starting catcher for the Atlanta Braves. He was the first catcher to wear Force 3 equipment. He has a Force 3 mask actually in the Hall of Fame because of the protection that it does and kind of how big this was coming into the game. And did an interview with Jason Klein, who created Force 3, and also Tyler Flowers. And I had liked and commented on that interview. It's how Mike got a hold of me. And then he asked me if I wanted to do the show, and I got a hold of Chris, and almost a year later, guys, here we are. So, I have wanted to talk with Jason Klein for a while. He and I have talked, at least, on Facebook back and forth. We've messaged multiple times. Love his products, love what he does, and really excited to have him joining the show here in just a second to tell you pretty much what Force 3 is, how it's designed, what it's designed to do. We will also put up some of their videos that show you guys in game situations taking a shot in the same spot Dale Scott did on that chin. Imagine taking a right hook from Muhammad Ali to your chin at 98 miles per hour. That's basically what's happening here. And guys are just walking off like it's nothing. So, guys, stick with us real quick. We'll be right back with Force 3 founder and creator Jason Klein on Out of Left Field. And thank you again, Jason, for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure to have you. We do wish you all the best, and again, a happy Easter. Guys, again, stay safe out there. If you are a youth catcher, if you are a high school catcher, college, whatever it may be, okay, these masks are worth the money for your protection. Chris, you'll laugh. We had a while. We were busy. We didn't talk a lot before the show had started back up. And one of the things that he had said is that, I was using a traditional Wilson titanium mask. And he said, for your birthday, I'm buying you a Force 3 because he knows he has seen what the concussions do. And I just didn't have the money for it at the moment, and I thought it was going to be fine. I literally have never taken a straight shot to my mask. It just had never been an issue. I've taken it off the throat guard, never to the mask. It always hit the vest. Luckily, I was gifted one by Scooter Morrison, who you can contact through American Sports Officials on Facebook. He's also a retailer for Force 3, and it's been one of the best investments I've ever had. It's awesome. Love to have it. So, guys, again, they make the hockey-style masks. They make regular masks. They make catching equipment. Look at investing in this for your long-term health. If you are an umpire, get it for your health, guys. I don't care, Little League or not. I know guys who have been concussed on a sub-junior varsity level baseball game. It does not matter. The best pitchers in high school had to come through Little League, and they were throwing hard as hell then. They're throwing harder as hell now. Do what you have to do to stay safe. Okay, we know concussions are bad. Keep yourself safe. Your safety should always be your first priority as an official, as a catcher, as a player.
Absolutely. And I can't agree more with the idea of keeping yourself safe and keeping yourself safe behind the plate. Look, even if you are like Graham was and you've never taken a direct shot to the mask, the fact of the matter is that it's sitting behind the plate. It's just a matter of time. It's all a numbers game. It's just like riding a motorcycle. They say that nobody is an actual motorcycle rider unless they've laid their motorcycle down. And it's not if you lay your motorcycle down, it's when. And
I know a guy who just destroyed his kneecap doing that. Laid it down, the bike is fine, his leg is not. He's got about 6 screws, and they had to put a knee back together. So, yeah, guys, right. It's going to happen eventually. You will be hit. We all have been hit in places. You will eventually catch one. My buddy got one on a majors game. For those of you who know that, we're talking the Little League age. When you watch the Little League World Series, or 11 and 12-year-olds, that's called the majors division for most. He took 2 in the mask in that division and locked his jaw. It's no joke. It does not matter what level. A 50-mile-an-hour ball, a 60-mile-an-hour ball off the bat will gain speed into your head, will concuss you, guys. So please be safe. Enjoy your Easter, of all things. It's going to be an enjoyable family weekend. A lot more baseball to go. Chris, before we sign off, any last words, my friend?
Just, kind of pay attention. We don't mean to get preachy with you guys. We don't mean to stand on a soapbox with you guys, but we never want to see anybody get hurt. And thankfully, Gail Scott is okay. Negative CT scan. In fact, he posted his own update that said, just got back to my room from the hospital. CT scan was negative. Everything looks okay except for the nasty headache and another concussion. I'll be fine, but off the field for a couple weeks. And that is a happy ending to a really bad situation. But when there's a piece of equipment out there that can prevent those kind of injuries, we don't mean to sound preachy, but it's something you need to look into if that's going to be what you choose to do with your life. So,
and the key word in that statement, another concussion.
Right. Guys, and multiple concussions, as we learned from the NFL research, multiple concussions lead to problems later in life. So
we will.
It's been a crazy week.
And there actually is a video also from Force 3 that shows the impact testing. We will post that as well to our Twitter page at OO Left Field on Twitter, as well as Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham on Facebook. We figured after a year, you guys know who it's hosted by, so we're going to give it a little bit of a quick name change. So instead of hosted by Chris and Graham, just now out of left field with Chris and Graham. Guys, again, I appreciate you joining us. Been a great week. Thank you, Jason Klein. Everybody have a happy Easter. For Chris Furry, I'm Graham. Have a great Easter, guys. Catch you next week back here on Out of Left Field.